Okay, so yes, thank you for the wonderful introduction. So exactly as Sue said, I was really inspired by, upon the birth of my son to kind of reconnect with my passion for the environment. And since there, it has kind of broadened out to the theme of sustainability, which I'll talk you through more detail in a moment. But I've got involved with things like our local council's cloth nappy kit hire scheme, and I'll talk to you a bit about that as well. And my background is actually in, ironically, marketing and partnerships. So earlier this year, I did a course with the University of Cambridge's Sustainability Institute, which I highly recommend. And I'm really looking for ways that I can continue to have an impact on the planet. So as some of you should know, we set up a bit of a survey covering a range of different questions, and I'm going to cover some of the highlights today, as well as some other areas. So the first one I wanted to talk about, which was a question that I kind of reflected back on, was what does sustainability mean to you? And it was really exciting to see all the different answers that came in. So I'm just going to bring onto screen now, if you can see them. All the different words that came up from the answers that we were given. So it's, protection, it's about natural resources. There was a lot about different kind of tactics coming through. So composting, recycling, and breastfeeding was on there as well, which again, in my mind now it's top of mind, but it really started to make me think as well in different areas. So, and you can see air travel, and I think we've got less meat on there as well. So what this all comes down to primarily is a real focus on the environment, which is exactly where I started my sustainability journey. I was very much focused on the environment, but what I wanted to kind of just start with was actually looking at the topic of sustainability and what else could be included in it. So I just wanted to bring onto screen the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. So hopefully you can see them more clearly, but you can definitely see that there's a presence of environment in here with some of their goals, but there's also social matters that come into play. And the idea behind creating these goals in these different areas is that this combination together is what will help create a sustainable world and a sustainable planet. So the social side of sustainability is really just as important as the environmental aspect. So it's the no poverty, it's the equality, it's the gender equality, and reducing inequality in the world that will really help us all come together and have a sustainable planet to live on, as well as the environmental aspect. So with that aside, when we go through the rest of the slides, keep that in mind. One of the big areas that came out that people said from the survey that they would like to learn a bit more about was the fashion industry. So I was going to start kind of with the wardrobe and look at sustainable choices there. And then we'll move on to some other areas. I wanted to show you all this advert, which came out a couple of years ago from the brand Patagonia. So they are very sustainability focused, and it literally was the headline, "Don't buy this jacket." They've got a repairs policy as well set up in their company, but it's not often that you see, again, from a marketer's point of view, brands taking this approach. And obviously, fast fashion is very much top of mind for a lot of people at the moment, and finding ways around just relying on that. A huge amount of waste is generated from fast fashion. We've got some stats here for you guys to have a look at. But the other thing that I've recently discovered is actually the returns side of things. I used to buy a whole bunch of stuff from ASOS and then just send it back, anything I didn't need. But with a lot of the businesses, they are still not managing that waste side in the most efficient way possible. So sadly, some of those items that you return might still end up going to landfill because the companies just cannot process them in the most efficient way. So what can you do? So this kind of buyer's hierarchy on the left is a great visual to have top of mind when you're thinking about purchasing something. It is, obviously there is the level of convenience that you might need something very, very quickly, but wherever possible, it's great to have this sense check of, what do I already have? What could I borrow? What could I swap? Could I buy something secondhand or pre-loved? Could I make it? And if not, then right, okay, I'll buy it. There's some great examples of new types of businesses here as well that I've included if you're not familiar with some of them. The likes of Her Collective and Bundle and Joy are actually rental models. So you can rent your clothes and then return them when you're done. So in terms of that kind of seasonal aspect of fashion, that's really great. And the Bundle and Joy one actually is a maternity rental. Because again, in the maternity space, you think about how long women actually wear some of these clothes for. It's not particularly huge amount of time. And, often afterwards, they just won't go back to wearing them. And then Vinted, Depop and Pure Bundle, these are all areas and marketplace where you can buy pre-loved clothes. Pure Bundle is actually for children, and if you go onto my Instagram account, or you can contact me, there's a 15% discount there as well. And I've included some other brands for you to have a look at here. Lost stock is really interesting as well. There was a lot in the news earlier on this year about companies that didn't pay for clothes that had been produced from factories from Bangladesh and so forth. And this company bought that stock and were successfully delivering it to consumers that still wanted to buy it. So some really fantastic brands here to have a look at. And then I've just kind of put a few headlines here in terms of different things to consider when you're wanting to buy from shops. So what kind of model is it are you buying from? Is it a rental model? Is it pre-loved? What kind of materials are used in the fabrics you could look at? Where's it being shipped from? I went onto a website recently and bought something that when it turned up, I found it had been all the way from China. So again, it's just, trying to look at buying local whenever we can. Workers, how are the workers treated? The life cycle of the clothes as well. What happens when they're finished? And last but not least, packaging. These are all things that we might want to consider. And in my view, there's no brand that's doing this all perfectly, but these are just things to think about when we're looking into companies. In terms of the bathroom, I've got loads of resources in here for you to have a look at. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but these are some great alternatives, kind of plastic-free alternatives and zero waste options here. I've tried them all, so they have been tried and tested. The two I really wanted to call out were period products, and some of the refills in makeup. So the Moon Cup is a really great alternative to tampons and sanitary pads. There's obviously also reusable sanitary pads available. And these Wooker pants, I think you pronounce them, are the most comfiest period pants you can wear, and they are rewashable, so reusable. And the only other one here that I wanted to call out was just the Slapstick from Lush. This is actually a plastic-free foundation. So it comes in cardboard, and you just use your makeup brush to put it on. Really, really recommend those ones. And there's some other ones here just for refill options. And again, the links are in the deck that you'll receive. And then just the last kind of room of the house, if you like, is the kitchen. So plastic in your tea bags has had a lot of press this year as well. So a wonderful alternative to this is, there are some great brands like Pucker Tea, for example, and some others that are doing compostable tea bags. But even better than that, I would say, is Loose Tea. And I've even included a link to a particular tea strainer that I love to use. You literally just twist the handle, scoop up your loose tea, and pop it into your teacup, and you're ready to go. The other aspect within the kitchen that I'd really recommend you having a look at is to see if you have a local zero waste shop. So they're lovely community places, and you can go and stock up on grains, pasta, nuts, you name it, and you take your own containers and can refill essentially. So there's some good options online there. Last but not least, what I wanted to just talk to you about was cloth nappies. So as I mentioned, I'm a host for the local trial kit. And it was great in the survey to see that I think it was about a third of people that answered had seen cloth nappies being used by parents. Some of them had been asked, for details. And some of you had also seen live demos, which is fantastic because I'm really passionate about this area. And I think this is one of the biggest areas that we can help families to make reduce their impact on the environment. And I'll talk you through just very briefly about some of those areas. So out of the respondents, there were some of you that were already using cloth nappies, which is wonderful, and some of you that had used them more recently or maybe years ago when you were bringing up your children. So they've come on a long way. They are now have a model here, very cute prints and really very, very reliable. So I've included a visual here, and there's some guides and further references in the details for you to have a look at, some videos on how to fit them and things like that. So I won't cover that now. But ultimately, there's a waterproof part and an absorbent part. That's very top line, and you can see there's some different types here, but I will just say that for the moment. And then what I really wanted to get on to is the comparison between the disposables and the reusables. I'm not going to read through all of this here, but the key points and the key reasons for parents choosing this, it's not just the environmental aspect. That is a big factor for many, but the other factor is actually cost. So if you look at the first line here, the estimates that I have been given are, on average, you can save by using cloth nappies about £1,200 per year that your child is in cloth nappies compared to disposables. Obviously, there's an initial setup cost, but you can actually get that back when you resell them on afterwards. And there's a big pre-loved community for cloth nappies. So that's a real area that parents, often choose cloth nappies for. The other side is more of the kind of natural fabrics and the, no chemicals in the cloth nappies, which is a great side. And then, as we've mentioned, it's the environmental aspect. So disposables can take up to 500 years to break down, like a lot of plastic items can. They also you rely on production of use of the crude oil and a huge amount of water to actually be produced. So again, I've included resources there for you to read further about that. But top line, the disposables often end up in landfill, and the cloth nappies are reusable for not just one child, but more. So they don't suit all families. I absolutely appreciate that. And you often will find families that do it part-time. They might just do it when they're at home, not do it when they're traveling. So it's really adaptable, and it just depends on the family. But I think it's great to help boost awareness that this is an alternative. I've included some details on how families can get started as well. There's some great government incentive schemes for the families themselves. There's a great link from a company called the Nappy Gurus, which literally lists in the UK by council what is available. So often you will have either a trial kit, like I've talked about already, which would be a range of different nappies and sizes and brands for the parents to try for free for 2 weeks or 4 weeks. They return the kit afterwards, and that's it. But it's a good tester for them. Or there would be a voucher scheme in place, which can range from 25, I think I've seen, up to maybe £80. The parents can take that voucher and spend it online to buy new nappies with one of the retailers. That's included in the Scottish Baby Box, which launched, I think, maybe earlier this year or last year. So there's also a link on my website as well with some other tips about how to get started. I've included also just some top line details on washing, but I won't go through that now because it's quite straightforward and I'm conscious of time. But if anyone's got any questions, please just let me know. I'm happy to help. And then just to finish up, really, my top tips in dealing with sustainability. I think, these are my learnings. It's, Rome definitely was not built in a day. And, it's the same applies for your sustainability journey. Don't try and take too much on in one go. Just do it step by step. I was given some great words of wisdom that, maybe pick a room in the house to tackle first, or maybe it's just one thing like, reducing your plastic and then building up from there. I think it's easier to deal with that way. And a couple of the other areas, be kind to yourself and to others. We're all at very different stages in our journeys. And I think we'll get even further if we act together as a team, asking each other for support. And I think this leads in really nicely to, what can be done in the workplace as well, because there's so many different passionate people that it's only when you start up the conversation, you realize just how many people are around you that are passionate about the topic, like everyone that's on the call today. So I think just get stuck in, just go for it. And, it's a never ending journey. Just continue to learn. And I've included some other thought starters that you can have a read through, and just other areas to cover. But that was it.
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.